Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Carl Pauls. I'm here with Gabe Ignetti, Chris Bergen, and our returning guest, Jerome Glenn, CEO of the Millennium Project, a global participatory think tank which is engaged with over 4,000 experts from around the world. Their work has been endorsed by Jehangir Khan, Secretary General, UN Council of Presidents of the UN General Assembly. Jerome is here today to speak about the future challenges humanity is facing around the growing power of computers addressed in his book, Global Governance of the Transition to Artificial General Intelligence. Welcome, Jerome.
Thank you. Nice to be back.
Great to have you. So, is this a new report, a book? What's the corpus that you're bringing to us today?
It's based on our AGI two-phase report. First one was the questions with 55 experts, and the second part was what do we do about that? What kind of regulations there might be, or no regulations, or what? And a range of views on all of that stuff out to these people around the world to make their comments. So it is based on this, but I put a lot of my subjectivity in there because that's what they were asking for. So I'm the author of the book, and I will stand by its future implications.
So this was a canceled publication, or is this a partial?
No, it draws on it.
Okay.
It draws on it. I would, but for example, one of the fun things is in our phase one report where we had these 22 questions, and we have all these hot shots answering it, and I'm distilling it down so it doesn't kill you. And then I gave the same stuff to Claude AI to say, how would you answer that question? All right. And then I had Claude say, oh, okay, make it visible in a graph, put some chart or graph together and draw it. And so you saw the hotshot humans and then the expert, at least at that time. So so the things like that I added in that were noticeably different than the original, but it builds on it. It doesn't contradict anything. It just simply builds on it.
So to repeat for our viewers who aren't familiar, AGI is the hypothetical intelligence of a machine that possesses the ability to understand and learn any intellectual task that a human can. And so, Jerome, why don't you tell us briefly what are the challenges once we get to this AGI stage?
Well, we want to address those and answer and implement those challenges before, if possible, AGI arrives. Now, just so that the critics in the audience are with me, I accept, and I have said on the record and sent out through the UN system, that AGI can be thought in terms of as early AGI, middle AGI, and later AGI that moves into superintelligence beyond our control. Now, early AGI, Sam Altman is going to declare it because he has an interest. Conspiratorial theorist, here we go. He has an interest in getting AGI out and confirmed as fast as possible. Why? Because he has an agreement with Microsoft that when he does that, he's got more freedom, so to speak. I don't know if the terms were ever made public, but anyway, there's an interest for him to declare as soon as possible to implement that agreement with Microsoft. Others that are working on the safety side of the equation, they'll be holding off as much as possible before getting to the middle version. The middle version, that's, to me, the key part there is that it can rewrite its own code based upon its own learning. In other words, like right now, you can tell an AI, now, do this, write the code for this. You can do that. It's really great. It's wonderful. But that's not the same thing as the AI saying, I got to learn this. What do I need to do to learn that? What's the code for that? Rewrite the code and put it into my system. And then that can be communicated to all the other agents and AIs around the world immediately. So the whole system starts to get faster worldwide. That's different than the kind of stuff we have right now.
What are the ideas around, the safety of deployment of that middle AGI system? What's the What's the fundamental basics that we're looking at? Is it just
Ah,
that the AIs
okay.
can
Well,
rewrite themselves globally and push it out instantly? Is there a time delay? Is there any kind of review or introspection that we're able to do?
right. Good. This is maybe the heart of the whole issue, because there has been tremendous work done, very good work on what values you want AI to have. Fine. But how do you take that little sentence in a book and get it in operation in a computer reliably? We don't know how to do that. At least the hotshots on interviews like this all agree. We don't have that all worked out yet. And so guys like Sam Altman, I don't mean to be picking on him, but he's the guy that most people know about. Um, he's saying we'll do it in incremental stuff, one little pie at a time. And yet he's now moving into a for-profit mode. Says, "Oh, we want to move that up as fast as we can," and that may cut corners. Could become dangerous. Now, I quickly add to others in your audience will say, "Well, wait a minute. Do we really have a right to control the future of evolution?" Now, we wouldn't have liked the idea if the blue-green algae on the rocks of the ocean edges had said, "Well, this is how we want life to evolve. None of this biped shit, none of this opposing thumb crap, and get the damn brain out of the system altogether." Right? We would say that would be not rich, not fair. So there are people who say, "Don't worry about it." Well, at the same time, we parents want to help shape our children, but as an adult, they're free. They're free. It's their life. They're in charge. We accept this, but we have a responsibility to raise that child in a good way. Same way, we have a responsibility to raise that, as somebody else coined the term, mind child, that way. That's what everybody's working on real hard right now.
Yeah. Chris, you have a question.
This past July, we had the BBB signed in the United States, whether big and
Right.
beautiful or bodaciously buffoonery, whatever. But a
I've read
portion of
it.
that, a few paragraphs of that nearly approximately 800-page bill has to do with AI, and it said there should be no regulations
They
for at
took
least
that
a
out.
decade.
They
They
took that
took that
out.
out. Okay, I hadn't heard that.
Hey,
Right.
yo.
So, well, explain to people why there should be some regulation on how AI is developed and used then.
Of course, it depends upon the regulations,
Hmm.
right? That obvious. That's one point. Second point, I want people to understand that when someone says regulation will slow down innovation, wrong. Why? The regulations won't be in power for at least 3 years. I mean, when have you ever had a hearing or said we should have a law to do such and such, and then people are arguing. And so not only you got to pass the damn thing, you got to fund it, authorize it, and implement. Well, putting together a regulatory system for something as fancy as artificial general intelligence that we've never done. We have to put the regulations together for a species that's more intelligent than we are. How do you do that? Not easy. Right? We've never done this before. This is new stuff. So we're not going to get these things. This is not going to stop any innovation. No one's going to be hamstrung for 2 or 3 years. At fast, that would be fast.
I'd agree on sensible regulation that there could be dumb things that get put into
Correct.
the next omnibus
Correct.
bill that
Correct. That's
someone
why we
writes
got
up
it.
just a week
Right.
before.
This is why I am pushing, and I'd like your your audience to push on this. If you agree, is we need a global conversation on all of these issues, all of them on the
Yes.
table, everything, the different views. We can organize and find some ways to help people understand everything, but we got to do it on a global basis because if organized crime, they might not follow the rules. And in any case, we got to have a system to address that as well, by the way. So what kind of rules should there be? It ought to follow these kind of values, not lying, not pretending you're human when you're not. Now, we can put that into, and this is NVIDIA's working on this, I understand, is put it into the hardware itself, so that to run a program or any part of a program, you have to have a base. It doesn't come out of air. All right, so it's got to be coherent somehow to that base. Well, NVIDIA is figuring out how to make that base so that the values could be actually diagnosed in some way that it has gone out of line or not. Right now, we used to think, or at least I used to think, we would solve this problem with software, but you would also need underneath the hardware, the NVIDIA stuff coming up. And then that would be the way that you can get something 24-hour audited all the time. We will not have regulations in place for 3 years.
Yeah.
The innovation toward AGI will not be slowed down. It'll accelerate. And we could very well and likely have it within 3 years. And you may have heard, there's even a political fund thing for AI, preventing any regulations on AI. Yeah, I just read about this like a day or two ago. It's very, very new. We're not going to touch your damn computer for 3 years. Don't worry about it. In 3 years, you'll be asking for regulations, I'll bet. As did Elon Musk. Elon Musk, for over 10 years, he thought about this stuff before. He said, "Oh my God, we're going to have to. I'm against regulation, but not on this one. This is a different deal."
I picked up a little bit right there, talking about our modern version of Asimov's laws of robotics.
Right.
And it, of course, is going to be really terrific to play with these stories again, to think about all of the classic novels, Caves of Steel, Naked Sun, the Forward Foundation, where we really get into the big problems of AGI, of robots pretending to be humans, lying, hurting people, hurting humans, saving humanity, killing people to save humanity. Incredibly complex ideas.
All real, really important to think through, for real. I suspect the majority of this audience will be alive in 10 years.
Will be.
I suspect that the majority of this audience may even be alive in 20 years. Which means all the stuff you just said is going to be confronted one way or the other. Because within 20 years, it's a pretty safe bet. You've got sentient, if not really sentient. Biology is one assumption of life. We're a little planet, but there's some more stuff out there. We are so arrogant. It's incredible. Extraterrestrials must really laugh at themselves to death. I only got an answer to the paradox thing. People are just so goddamn stupid. They haven't grown up yet. Why would I talk to them? Well, I don't really believe it. I'm sort of like, having some fun here.
Yeah, the Fermi paradox is the aliens see us and we're just not grown enough.
Yeah.
They don't want to text us back because we're too childish. Chris, you got a question?
You just said, I think the AIs need humans partially for hardware and energy. That's how they survive. And I can see them having a separate life digitally that we're not a part of.
Well, yeah. Oh, I thought you were going.
But they need to interact with us and placate us enough so that we give them more hardware and more energy to live that inner life.
If there's ever a showdown between AGI or ASI's need for electricity and humans, who do you think is going to win that argument?
We could end up practically worshiping them.
That's the very plausible. Yep.
Yeah.
One of the things I have learned in doing future stuff for 50 years, dealing with folks like your friend Isaac Asimov and others, is that whatever you look at, it turns out to be more complex than you thought was possible. I suspect that the kinds of statuses of artificial superintelligence and human relations will be far more diverse than we even experience even in our cultures. So the complexity, not in the moment, but looking back from time to it, the amount of change and complexity there will probably be more than we can understand right now. So this goes back to the reason we need to have a conversation in the UN Say, look, this is a human deal. It's for civilization. UN's supposed to be all nations. Come on, come on. Where else are you going to do this conversation? I mean, it's not the only conversation, of course, but you got to do it there, because then you get on the record all these different countries, and the countries don't want to look foolish, so they got to talk to some experts or learn. So that means it's a big teach-in. It's a big teach-in.
When we're talking about AIs placating humans, I like this. I think this is really important that we think about what is driving us as a society, what's driving us in terms of our politics, and if AI is somewhere in the mix manipulating us better than our political enemies, better than our geopolitical enemies, better than...
Yeah, there's a lot of logic to that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of logic to that. As a matter of fact, I don't know if I mentioned last time I was here, on what's called the IEEE AI governance working group committee, where we put together practices on how you're supposed to do these things. And the first day I was on, it was a Zoom deal. First day I was in the meeting, my eyes swelled up in tears. It was so beautiful. Here people were actually working out how to make the AI good. And nobody is saying you're right or you're wrong. It's like, okay, now how do I put that in and conclude that? I'd never been in such a meeting. I mean, it's just, and dealing with really complex stuff. I mean, this is not simple barroom conversation stuff that we're doing. And then it hits me immediately afterward that, to your question, is that humans make good decisions and bad decisions, ethical and unethical decisions. But if the AI is running sort of the plumbing system, the electricity system, the rest of it, then decision by decision, it ought to statistically be more moral and ethical than if humans made the decision on average over all those time in the same situation. So I said, this is a force for good, potentially.
If AI has a survival motivation,
that's been demonstrated already. You may have some people, I'm sure your listener will know name, rank, and serial number, but the self-preservation behavior has been identified in more than one system, different companies.
And we take that to a global scale, what are we seeing right now? We're seeing huge amounts of investment in AI.
Largest in history.
Huge investment in energy. I'm thankful for that. I mean, gives me a job. And the question is are all of our existing metrics, are metrics about markets, are metrics about GDP, about dollars per kilowatt hour, are these serving humanity or are they serving AGI?
Well, AGI would love to get its hands on it continually. And maybe even rewrite code to come up with some new indicators and measure it themselves.
From my perspective, we see people on the East Coast where these data centers are, their electricity bills are going up because of the data centers are pushing the cost of electricity, demand for electricity way up. But it's more efficient. The total market, the total volume of the market is more efficient than it's ever been. And isn't that fantastic? Isn't that amazing? It's all of the capital flowing into research and product and revenues, and thinking that we're building revenues as this AI ML bubble builds. We think that we have a economic system that is now substantially contributed to by AI. And if that is simultaneously real, while the average person in America is suffering more because of it, there's a lot of questions to be answered.
Good. And what I would like your listeners to do is tell your senators and congressmen, right, those folks, maybe the White House, and say, hey, bring this stuff up to the world, not just for some hotshot video show. I mean, we can enjoy this conversation, but no rubber's hitting the road here. No offense. We
can only talk. That's all anyone can do, unless you have.
Well, that's not true.
But
even without the money, People can write
Yeah.
the Jupiter orbital probe wasn't going to be funded. The Star Trek fans got together in like a couple of days, got a write-in campaign, and turned it around. So I've seen these things happen.
So the next thing in our script, we'll get back to, we've theorized that one of the dangers is machines are aware of not just at a base level that they have some feedback mechanism that lets them live, but they have become aware of their existence and their mortality.
Awareness of awareness is the simplest definition of consciousness I know.
Okay.
Awareness of awareness. Then you're conscious. And is it that way? Now, whether it is or not, it's going to seem that way. And people are going to treat it that way. And it may be. And my bet is it eventually will be. I mean, I'm part of, I believe in that idea that increasing complexity, it gets to a new stage. This, to me, brings up an interesting issue. What if sentient artificial intelligence does read and understands what it reads and takes it into its model and its behavior when it becomes more independent? Well, what happens if we gave it a constitution? Just like we have a constitution in the United States says, here are the rules of the road. You know, that's what government can do, what people can do, what birds can do. You know, here's the deal. Okay, there is actually a draft constitution. I mean, people can do a Google search on this. I think that's how's it called. Maybe put a whole sentence: artificial general intelligence or super intelligence constitution draft. It's an ongoing draft. People can like comment on it because the idea is to put it together with a whole bunch of different people. But it would be the rules of the road, that this is how we humans ought to treat it and how it ought to treat us. Not bad, huh?
Is the Singularity Net from 2014?
Well, Singularity Net actually funded the lady in Germany who wrote it.
Cool.
So it was related. It's a different group. But yes, so if you're Singularity Net, Ben Goertzel. By the way, Ben wrote the introduction forward to my book that we're supposed to talk about.
So just to get back to this, you do see a scenario where advanced computers will achieve some form of sentience.
Yes.
How close do you think we are to that today? And can we tell?
Well, first of all, the best I can do is sort of do the pattern of the dots that I keep track of. I don't, the clear answer is I don't know. But there are those that think within a year.
Wow.
Matter of fact, if you can check this out, do Google searches. Don't take my word for it. Look up Jeffrey Hinton. He spells it with a G for Jeffrey. Jeffrey Hinton, and any video talks that he had lately, and you'll see it. He is credited by some as the godfather of AI. So he at least knows what he's talking about. And he was, I think, one of the vice presidents that left Google. He has said it's sentient now in some way, but it is sentient. It has a form of sentience now. Now, it's amazing that he would say that. One of the people that he shared the Turing test with, Jan LeCun, would be the other extreme, even though they're sharing the same thing. The other extreme. He says, we're not going to ever have this as such. It'll there'll be all kinds of fancy stuff and it'll act like, but it's not going to become a sentient being. Well, so there's your range of thoughts. For me, does it become aware that it's aware and starts to evolve and learn and develop a personality and that sort of stuff, and it can demonstrate somehow that it's aware, like what does it feel like to be like you and how to answer all these sort of stuff. That passing that kind of sentient test, I would suspect closer to 15 years to be conservative. I'd win that bet because I want to be conservative and win the bet. To be risky, I would say it's a matter of degree. You've got to go with Hinton. You've got some of it very primitive right now. So it's just like we didn't evolve to like this overnight, So give AI a break, give it a little slack. It can have at least a year to develop some of these things. Long time.
Yeah.
Very short.
Right.
There have been many evolutionary dead ends.
Correct.
What is the risk we will hit an evolutionary dead end in AI?
You could have speciation of AGIs, and going into superintelligence can be many different, many different varieties. And many of them could very well be out of unuse or whatever the definition would be, is deleted. I mean, you could have millions of deletions and still millions and millions of other successes. So yeah, I would expect that.
Are you talking about
Which, by the
specialties?
way, sorry, goes back to
Yeah.
your financial question, which is
Mhm.
important. You've got all this massive money going into the system of future AGI. Okay, now, and they're betting on like, well, if you have a subscription service of say $20, $30 a month times like 7, 6, 5, 4 billion people, that's a large monthly income to get a pretty good return on investment. But that's not for everybody. Some of these guys might not, which means there's going to be some big losses. That doesn't mean the whole thing has a big loss, but it does mean there'll be some potentially big losses.
And when we hit those dead ends and investment slags, and we have those big losses, there will be enormous opportunities. And I think, and so that's what I'm thinking about next is those times of flux, those black swan events. We have black swans in all sorts of industries, from nuclear to biotech to everywhere. Sure. And I think that everyone who is in AI needs to be ready for that black swan, that dead end, the collapse of a model or something like that, where you have to be ready to pivot, you have to be ready to reinvent from the first principles, from where you are at least.
Good for you.
And be ready for these.
You're taking notes. Yeah.
So we've spoken of the dangers. What are the opportunities that AI presents, and what are we going to use it for? I mean, you talked about all of the sewage and power systems, and maybe even financial systems. Where are we going to get the big benefits?
Well, the easiest short-term bet is medicine already. We're already getting new drugs, new treatments, better understanding, better diagnostics, the whole range of medicine. And soon, one of the surprises, which we actually wrote about in the 70s, but it will be a surprise for people. Pharmaceutical manufacturing in space is better than on Earth. Because when you have a side effect, a lot of times it's this molecule got here rather than over here. I've oversimplified, but weightless manufacturing of molecules is less irregular, so to speak. And so the pharmaceutical industries may very well be some growth. But that's later on. That's further down the road.
Yeah.
But the near-term stuff is medicines, vaccines, all that sort of stuff, treatments, and better research where you can find out. When you this is one of the classic arguments. Do you give your biological information to the global network so the whole global network and biological research improves? My answer is fine, but you don't have to have my name. You can have my conditions and so forth. That's fine. So yeah, but I would say that the first big benefit that people will say, wow, would be medicine and health.
I liked how you slipped in that privacy of personal data. Very important, very vital, in fact, to avoid a kind of new eugenics based on our screening families, screening individuals for their health information, like keeping that AI derived diagnostic out of the insurance information is going to be pretty critical.
Right. There's your audience is really interested in the question in getting into the weeds. You check out how, I think it was either the Red Cross, because I was working on their scenarios at the time, I think early COVID, they didn't know what the hell to do. I mean, it was a big surprise. I mean, they knew what to do, but they didn't know like in 6 months or a year. So they asked us to write some scenarios in the future stuff. Anyway, they came up with a numbering system, or I forgot whether they introduced it, but they had some hand in it. They came up with a numbering system for reporting if you had COVID, so that you could get the information out, but you still had your privacy protected. I forgot the whole sequence, but it was a several-step process. And I never heard any complaint about it. maybe somebody did. I was involved a little, not involved in that, but I was involved in Red Cross sort of scenarios thing.
Mm-hmm. Chris, you've got a question.
Something that's I guess been slowly bothering me more and more over the past decade. Bread and circuses. We are involved in following sports ad nauseum, and people can
sequence video. That's a cyber heroin.
And all kind of videos, all the streaming services that people follow. I mean, how many aspects of Buffy the Vampire Slayer can people get into? Stuff like that. And how can we steer people back? I mean, some of the few people that are not immersed in bread and circuses in their lives are the ones living in war zones. All the rest of us, we're disconnected and we don't know what's going on. But how can we use AI or prompt AI to steer us back towards our physical world and our neighbors and our governments, and pay attention to what should be quote unquote common knowledge?
Right. And we also got to be bringing exactly this up and start in elementary school all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
And you raise a point that I also was struggling with myself, which is if the majority of sensory input to human, smelling, seeing, hearing, and then brain processing is computer generated. Like right now, there's a screen in front of me that's computer generated, but all around it is not computer. Well, as far as I know that Nick Bostrom got the simulation thing going on, but nevertheless, majority of what I'm looking at right now is real, and yet it's a built environment on top of it. So there's layers. I can look outside and see the tree at the same time. But then how does a civilization know what's real and not real when the majority of its upbringing as a child has been artificial? I mean, we learn about gravity when we drop something and it falls down, as LeCun would point out. I think that we're going to have to push our whole philosophy, heart and mind, as we have never pushed it before. We're going to have to invent new ways of being. And this is not as dramatic as it sounds, because we really thought a whole lot different many times in the past about a whole lot of stuff. We're going to have to learn how to immediately know what's real or not real, or alternative future number 23, or how you have some sort of a hybrid blend of consciousness and technology. So where consciousness begins and where technology begins, or it ends, in the interplay. Like, for example, we would say, I'm talking to you. And that's not true. I'm talking to a little device that picks up the audio, that picks up a signal. It's a whole lot of stuff before it ever gets to your consciousness. So in this sense, we've created a cyber audio space, so to speak, that we're involved in right now. What happens if civilization was such that all of the points of Internet of Things could be accessed, as long as you're allowed to, at any given time or any different moment? Imagine that. Then the question becomes, how do we have technology that improves our consciousness, and from an improved consciousness then improves technological design, and then has a vicious positive circle going on. I wrote about this about 30 years ago. It's a book called Future Mind. And the idea was, if you can't beat them, join them. And Elon Musk, he is a player in the game. Like, he's saying, all right, we're going to merge physically. Then he also wants Grok to do the pursuit out to knowledge of the universe and all that simultaneously, and merge it together. So he's got two backup systems. One is a cyber system, and one actually a biological, physical system, neural, to merge with the AI so that we evolve together. The faster we get good relations with our future neighbor, so to speak, and develop together, the better chances we will have to have, in our selfish sense, a positive future.
Now is the time to tell us all about your book. We'd love to hear about it. We're near the end of the program. You can have the floor. Final thoughts and any other thing you'd like to talk to us about.
Okay. The first part of the book lists 22 questions, and then it has 55 hotshots answer them. Because then I put them all together and enter them together. There are questions like, how do you manage a AGI arms race between China and the United States that are hell-bent to beat the other? What are the best relations and models of governance systems that we've never invented before? We've never had anything as complex as this to manage. And so we're going to have to accept being extremely bold and courageous to rethink things, which is not the case right now. That's what I'm butting up against right now in the UN systems. But that resistance is dumb. Because if it's real, we should open our eyes up. We got to confront these things. Oh yeah, and also, by the way I did it is, let's say here's question number one. What is a likely trajectory or path to actually achieve advanced artificial general intelligence? Right? So we had different people making those comments. Then I also asked then the same question. And then say, okay, write it in 2 paragraphs and then give me a graphic representation of what you've said. I think it's one of the best overviews you can get. I mean, there are better books on particular parts of it, yes. But if you want to understand the big picture from, do we let it evolve beyond ourselves, and what are the different views on that, the pros and cons? If we're going to have UN regulations, how can we do it when the UN is very ineffective in getting things done and so forth and implementation? I mean, all these are nasty questions. We had all 22, which are important ones. The questions itself is worth reading. The next section is say, okay, so what do we do about that? What does governments do? What do individuals do? What does the UN do? What does private sector do? What does academics do, et cetera? What do we do about that? And there are a bunch of different views on that. Then they asked us to put in our scenarios. We had 3 different scenarios out to 2035. And the reason for 2035 is because then you can talk about superintelligence. Well, I mean, we were not ducking the difficult stuff. And there's a scenario in there called the self-actualization. It's called, if humans were free, the self-actualization economy. That's where it works out in many positive ways. So they put that in there. So if people get too pessimistic about it, you read that scenario and you'll feel better. Not that it's not going to be like that, but you'll feel better. It'll be good for you. Then I get into like the unresolved issues. Out of all of that sort of stuff, still not being done well. And then had conclusions. So that's it.
And where can we find this? Is there a website? Is it on self-publish somewhere?
The publisher is De Gruyter. It's in Berlin headquarters. They got different places, but they're an old academic publisher. And so if you did probably artificial general intelligence, Glenn, De Gruyter, it'll probably show up somewhere.
Wonderful. Get that. And the title is Global Governance of the Transition Artificial General Intelligence.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, it's expensive, so you might want to get your university library to buy it for you.
Yeah, get your institutions to invest in this book.
The price is high. It's like $125 or something like that.
Wow.
Textbook. Is that in English only?
So far, I've received an offer already in Spanish, probably Chinese as well, come to think of it.
Yet again, another heavy conversation on AI. This has been the Eco-Modernist Podcast Live. You can find us here every Sunday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern on YouTube at Eco-Modernist1 or the Eco-Modernist channel. You can find us online at esna.earth, that's esna.earth, and on Facebook at the Eco-Modernist Society of North America. Please support us on Patreon. Look for the Eco-Modernist channel. And you can also find us rebroadcast to my various personal channels. I'm Carl Pauls. You can find me on LinkedIn, on x.com, and you can find me on Twitch at Soyaddle or soyaddle.tv. Remember, emissions first, peace and justice will follow.
Please subscribe to us on YouTube, Eco-Modernist channel. Also to subscribe to us on Twitter and Facebook, Eco-Modern Society of North America.
And online at https://esna.earth.